Shaka. This is Laura, Kumulora Kumukavailehua with Lei Hulu Arts. You can see in front of me I have lots of ribbon and yarn and threads. Today we're going to go over how to apply a ribbon or demonstrate how to put on a ribbon when you're starting a Lei Hulu project that is wili style. So that would be like a kamoe style or poepoe style. So anything that's wili or wrapped. A lot of people have difficulty with this. There's different ways of doing it depending on who your kumu is and what their style. I have my own style that's a little different. A lot of kumus, they just tie the end of the yarn together. The number of yarn you use per project is also different depending on the style that you're using and the style that you follow. But the goal is to have a really nice, clean looking ribbon seam here. Let me turn on my light. I think that would help. So I hope you can see it's a very nice, clean seam here. And that is part of what is judged on the expert level of your lei making or not. So we really want this to be clean. The lei can look really pretty, but if this is all jagged and hamajang looking, it's going to devalue your lei. So let's learn how to put it on and how to finish this ribbon attachment. Okay, so what we start with is your yarn. Cut your yarn to the length of your project, and I'm going to make lokelani with this. My lokelani tend to be about 22 to 23 inches, and when you're measuring that, make sure when you're measuring the length of your lei, you're not measuring from feather to feather. You actually need to measure from the end of your ribbon attachment here where it's still bulky to the end of the ribbon attachment that will be on this side. That's going to add another approximately 1.5 inches. So if someone is wanting to put this on a papali, you need to be sure that you have the correct measurement. Okay, so I'm going to start with my yarn here. I've pre-cut it. Most of my lokelani, like I said, are 22, 23. So I make this about 28 to 30 inches long, yet there is a lot of waste, but I'd rather have more than not have enough. So I make sure that the ends of this are very even on the side that I'm going to wrap. I decide on my ribbon. So ribbon is really important too, what kind of ribbon you're going to use. Most of my lei, I use 7/8 inch ribbon, satin ribbon. You can use 5/8 if you use a lot less, like if you were going to do a vike, you would use a lot less yarn, so you would probably use a 5/8 inch wide yarn ribbon. Ribbon comes in two types. There's this one is double-sided, so you can see it's shiny on both sides. This one you can see it's dull on one side and shiny on the other. So I'm going to use the one-sided just so because it works both ways. With the double-sided it doesn't matter. So I'm going to use the one-sided ribbon, the one-sided shiny side, and I'm going to match my thread, which is very important. So I have two pink threads here, and you can see this one would probably go better with the darker pink. And since I'm going to use this lighter pink, I'm going to use this lighter pink thread. You want the thread to match as much as possible because you're trying to hide that seam as much as possible. So I'm going to just take some thread from here. Here's the end of the thread. I'm going to lay it on top of my bundle of yarn here, and then I'm just going to hold it in place, and I'm just going to wrap tightly, but not so tight that I'm going to break my thread. And you can see I'm kind of walking my fingers up so that you can see I'm covering this yarn, and I want this area that's covered to be approximately 3/4 inch. If it's really long, then you have this really long piece of bulky ribbon. So I found that 3/4 inch of this bundle tends to be ideal. So if I'm looking at this little measuring, this is 3/4 inch, and if I put that on there, I'm right at 3/4 inch. And then I'm gonna I'm going to go back over it and make sure that it's nice and tight. And some people would say that this is a waste of yarn, but let me tell you, I have seen some of these lei fall apart when people pull the ribbon to tie them on their neck, or use it as lei po or whatever. So now I'm just going to take and make little loops. So see, I'm going to grab this upside down, and I've just made a loop. I'm going to stick this in here, pull it through, and I'm going to do this 3-4 times, and this is basically making a hitch knot. So now I have this bundle. It's nice and tight. I have this little hairy end here. I call it my little afro, and I'm going to trim this down, but I'm going to put my fingers here. Make sure you don't trim your thread that you just put on there. So I'm going to trim this down and make it nice and neat looking, and it's really quick to do, as you can see. So now I have this nice bundle. It's tightly wound, and I'm going to get my ribbon. So here's my two-sided ribbon. There's a shiny side and a dull side. If you have two shiny sides, easy, you don't have to think about it. But if you have a dull side, when you put this against your bundle, you're going to put the shiny side against the bundle, and that will make sense why. And I'm going to have my little afro end is right at the edge here. My ribbon is going in the same direction as my yarn for right now. And then I'm going to take a good length of this thread. I'm going to cut this and put it on a needle. And I like to use 60 weight machine embroidery thread because it's very, very fine. And I use number 10 beading needles because they're also very fine. So they're very sharp and they don't puncture and leave big holes behind. So I've got my needle threaded, my thread needled. I've threaded my needle, and now you can see here's the thread that's coming off the bundle. I have the shiny side of the ribbon up against my bundle, and I'm just gonna kind of poke through the bundle and the ribbon. I'm gonna go through, and then I'm gonna come back up from the bundle, from the ribbon, through the bundle, and I'm going to go up and down. It doesn't have to be fancy because this isn't going to be seen, but this is really important because it's really holding that bundle in place so it won't come off the ribbon when it gets used or tied and pulled over and over again. So I'm going to go 4 or 5 times up and down the bundle, and my last one is going to come up at the base of the thread. You see where my first wrap of my thread is? I don't want this to show, so I'm going to bring up the needle up from the bottom and make sure that I'm clearing this thread. I'm going to make a burrito with this. So see, I've covered this up. I'm just going to go ahead and pull my thread all the way through, and now I'm going to wrap around this ribbon. So I've made a little pocket here, a little pocket. I'm pulling it pretty tight, but not so tight I'm gonna break my thread. And you can see my last thread is right here, so it's covered. I'm gonna come up from the bottom below the thread and come with my needle through the yarn. Do you see that? So it's not in my ribbon at all. It's only going through the ribbon from the bottom below where the thread is wrapped, coming up through the yarn, and I'm going to pull this through. So now I have this little bundle like this, and don't laugh, but this is like foreskin, okay? We're going to pull the foreskin back. Look at how pretty that looks. So we have this really nice clean edge against the yarn, and I have this little pocket here, and here's my thread coming out from the yarn. Now this is the really important part. We're going to do what's called a corset stitch. So I have my needle, I'm going to come from the inside and through the bottom into this threaded area. See this edging on the ribbon has some sewing. So I'm going to try and stay within that. I'm going to bring it through one side. I hope you guys can see this. And I'm going to go back from the bottom, like underneath, and to the other side. I'm not going to try and sew this center piece. I don't want to sew this ribbon at all. I'm just going to try and stick to the outside ribbon. When I pull this, it's going to close that seam. So I'm going to come maybe 1/8 of an inch or so up into that threaded area or edged area again. I'm coming from the bottom through there, and I'm going to pull and see how it closes it. It closes it really nicely, so you have a really nice seam that's not seen. So I'm going to do this and get this done. And be careful, this is when I'm always knotting. If I rush, I knot things. So the whole thing with Lei Hulu, if you don't rush, you want your good mana to go through this. So you don't want to make yourself frustrated. You don't want to rush. Just take your time. And I hope you guys are seeing this. But how nicely this seam is closing up, and because my thread is matching my ribbon as close to possible, it helps to hide that some more. So I'm going to just speed this up in the video. And now I'm getting to the end. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come through just above where you can see my yarn. And I'm going to come over through here and go through both sides because I want to close this off. So I'm just going to go through both of them and pull. So you can see it looks nice and neat. I'm going to do a second one and pull. And now to finish it off, I'm going to go back in through this side here. Can you guys see this? There we go. In through here, so that the thread is on the inside of this little hoop. And now I'm going to take my needle and go into the yarn, and I'm going to bring the needle all the way through and come up at the base of the ribbon and pull that thread through. So now this bundle is done. It's very tight and secure. It looks clean and neat there. It's clean and neat up here. And if you notice, here's the dull side of the ribbon is on the inside, and the shiny side is on the outside. Okay? And then I'm going to show you how to finish it, because you finish it the same way, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, we're back. I'm going to show you now how to finish. So I finished my lei, and I'm going to show you how to attach the ribbon on the other side. So just like when I started, I wrapped and kind of V-lead the end here. And it's approximately 3/4 of an inch. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I like it to be small. So I want to go from the most visible thread to the end here. And you can see that's just about 3/4 of an inch. And I've V-lead it, and I've hitch knotted a few times, and so this is what I have left. I've kept the thread attached. I threaded my needle. I pulled it out of my lei key, and I threaded a length of the thread that's left over, and I'm just going to park it right now. And I need to get rid of this extra tassel of yarn. So again, please be careful that you don't cut the thread that you just put on there, and I'm going to trim this up just like I did the other side. Like I said, this is just a reverse of what you did to start with. So I got my nice little bundle here. Here's my bundle, nice trim, and I'm going to take my ribbon. So when I make these, I always cut the ribbon to about 28 to 30 inches long. That gives me a little extra, then I can attach it. This ribbon happens to be the double-sided, because this is a different color ribbon that I'm using. But pretend this is the dull, the dull and the one-sided ribbon. I would put the shiny side, and what you want to do is you want to, when you lay down, you want your ribbon to look the same. You want this to be the same. So what I'm going to do is take my ribbon, lay my lay down. So when I put my ribbon on this side, I'm going to lay it like this so that after I pull it up, then this little hole and everything will match. I don't know if that makes, it's hard to describe that. Hard to describe that. So again, I'm going to do the same thing that I did when I started it. I'm going to put the edge of my bundle close to the top here. I'm going to just kind of sew through the bundle of yarn and the ribbon. I'm going to go to the top here because I want to make sure I sew this down really well. When I first started doing this, I did it the way that people use with the knots, and it was just so hard and bulky, and I just had a lot of difficulty with it, and they would come undone, or the stitching would look sloppy and bumpy. So I came up with this style. I don't know if I came up with it, but it's the way that I figured it out in my brain. Nobody taught me this way. I kind of figured it myself, and it may be the way other people do it. That's fine. And so I've sewn, you can see it's sloppy, doesn't matter, but my last stitch up through the bundle needs to be below these threads because I don't want it to show. So there's my needle, here's my thread. I'm going to make my bundle. This helps me mark where I'm going to be. Pull my thread through, and now I'm going to wrap this tightly about 4 or 5 times. I'm going to come through the bottom of the ribbon below this thread, and I'm going to come through the feathers and not get any of my needle into that ribbon at all. I'm going to pull my thread through, and here's my foreskin. I'm going to pull it back. And look how neat that looks. So now all I have to do is finish my corset stitch. Remember, I come from the inside. Try to stay within this sewn edge of the ribbon from the inside to the other side. And when I pull, it's going to pull these edges together. You know, you have to know how much yarn to use per your size of ribbon. And you have to calculate, you know, that the feathers are going to make your bundle a little thicker. So you'll probably have to cut out some ribbon. Probably cut out some of your yarn before you finish. That's a whole nother class in itself. But here's how I'm starting to get my little corset style, and pull this together and speed this up, and let me finish this up, and I'll come back when it's all done, okay? Okay, let's finish this up. So I finished sewing up this seam, and of course I'm a business, so I do brand my products. I'm at the end of my bundle. I'm going to go in through here, pull my needle into the center, and I'm going to go back down. Remember how we did this in the beginning? I'm going to take my needle and go right back down through the middle of the yarn bundle and come out at the bottom like this. And I'm going to knot it off. I can't do this close to the, let's see if I can lower this. I do these little, I hope I'm in the thing. I tend to do this type of knotting, and I'll go through here and pull this tight, and I'll go all the way through. So I'm going through the yarn, pull that tight. When I say pull that tight, I'm pulling this tight to keep those wrapped threads really tight against my feathers, and I pull this through. And I'm going to do that a couple of times back and forth and up through my bundle, just to make sure that I've really secured my ribbon onto my lei. Sometimes I come up through here, right into the seam. And see, I didn't do a good job of that because I didn't pull that tight enough. So I have a little loop there. But that's all she wrote, is we just finish tying this off. And hold on. Okay, I finished my seams. You can see if I lay my lei down, I have the backs of both sides. This one looks shorter because it's inside my rows here. So if I were to measure the length of this lei, I would measure it from here to here to know how long the lei is, not from here to here, because then you're going to be off by about 1.5 inches. So what do I do now to finish it? You see, I've kept this one. I match up my thick bundles here. It's not necessarily the flowers that I match up. I match up this, find the center, cut at an angle, and now I can tie this, and you'll see when I tie it, it's not going to close all the way. So just tie your little ribbon. And there you go. I've got my lokilani with a beautifully matched up and sewn seams on my ribbon. Okay, if you have any questions, please contact me at nowhuluarts@gmail.com, or you can DM me, message me on my website, which is nowhuluarts.com. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you for joining me.